and I just wanted to give a shout out to Stephanie, who is one of our YouTube viewers. And she sent me an email about a month ago and asked if I would do a series on spinning. So I'd like to do maybe 3 or 4 part video series on spins. Gosh, there are a lot of different ways to spin, but we'll just kind of start talking through things. And she said specifically she wanted them for left-brain people, so I think that's the very organized sort of, maybe the right brain creative folks just sort of intuit how to spin and just do it, and they just take off and go, and it works very well for them. But for others of us, we need specifically what to do step by step. And I think that the biggest thing that I would say is when you're learning to spin, go slowly. So maybe you can just throw yourself into a spin and it works, your body just gets it. But then I think that we need to be very patient with our bodies so that they can learn, because I really believe that our mind can learn something at a certain speed, can make sense in our mind, but then our body has to learn at a different speed. So some of us are very body aware, and other people have trouble walking down the street. They're not sure which side is left and which side is right. Or if you say put your foot under your right armpit, some people will go right there, and then other times people might kind of land outside that area. But the good news is that body awareness can be learned and it can be developed. So the first place that I want you to start with just part 1 is going slowly and creating body awareness and balance. So I want you to play around with having your feet side by side, directly under you, and then play around with scooting them out a little bit, right under your hips, not the outside of your hips, but right here, where your hip flexors would be. And another way to say that is put your feet underneath your armpits, so they're stacked right underneath your shoulders. Whenever your feet, depending on how wide they are, your center of balance lies on a straight line from the middle of your feet. What's the best way to say this? In between your 2 feet on that line. So somewhere in between there is where you're going to be balanced. If you get outside of 1 foot or forward of that line or back of that line, then you're going to be not balanced. So if your feet are closer, that you have a smaller amount of space in which you're going to be balanced, right? So playing around with just having 2 feet on the ground, and which is how you spend most of your life. Most of us are pretty balanced there. And then shifting your weight over to one side and picking up the other foot. So anytime you're spinning, you're on 1 foot, and chances are you get to one side, and so you've got your foot right over your hip flexor, and then it goes right up the side of your body into your shoulder, you create an axis there, and that's the place where you're eventually going to spin around. But for now, I just want you to go slowly and create that body awareness of being balanced on 1 foot. So we say there are 5 things to be aware of when you spin. There may be more, but one is knees soft or slightly bent, so that you don't have your knee locked out or super bent, just soft, yeah. And then you want your butt under, so you don't want to hyperextend your back or go sway back or tuck it in too much, where your pelvis tilts forward. You just want your butt sort of right under you, and then you want your head up, yeah. I feel like I'm missing one. Another one has to do with the shoulders, but that's actually when we get into spinning. Oh, the other one is you want your weight on the ball of your foot. So, when you're playing around with where your weight is side to side, you could have your weight on your heel, in the middle of your foot, or on the ball. Heels, middle, ball. And if you put your weight on the ball of your foot and sort of bend your knee a little bit, that's where you're going to be the most balanced for spinning, because you can't spin so well if your heel is on the floor or you're flat-footed. So side to side, finding your balance, and then if you're brave, then push up just a little bit, get your heel heel off the ground so that your weight is on the ball of your foot, and like your body might be just a little bit shaky as it tries to find its new balance, but that's what I would do first. So find where you're balanced, and then to prove to yourself that you're balanced, maybe move your arms around just a little bit, right? Because when you spin, like, things sometimes move. And depending on where your arms are, how high they are, it changes your, or even where your leg is. Like if you were going to move around, like people can spin in different positions. It changes where your center of gravity is in your body. So usually girls are somewhere in their midsection, guys' center of gravity is a little bit higher. But like if I were to raise my leg, then my center of gravity raises also. Yeah? So going slowly, creating body awareness, finding where you're balanced, and just notice that if your butt goes out, or if you drop your head, then you might start to shift forward. If you lock your knee out, you might start to shift back. So finding that place where you're balanced, weight on the ball of your foot, knee is soft, butt is under, head is up. And you want that on both feet. And you want your feet right under your armpits or your hips. Yeah? Okay, thanks. Come back for part 2.